Hello, everybody. My name is Declan Carolyn. I'm co-chair of ECR Community, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the second webinar in our series, which is based around our publication in January this year on a global review of circular economy case studies from the retail and CPG sector. In that review, we had just under 20 publications and case studies from around the world dealing with topics in the circular economy. And today we're going to focus on 3 of those presentations with a particular theme. We're going to look at waste management and food waste case studies. And I'm delighted to welcome today, we will have Fernando from Geronimo Martin. We'll have Angelina from AB Vasilopoulos and Chris from Food Cloud. And you're all very welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm just going to put today in a little bit of context, I suppose, because a couple of years ago, we decided to have different focus areas for ECR Community. And each year, we would have a different focus area. In 2020, we decided to focus on category management, and consequently we have had a publication similar to this one on circular economy, and have gone further still this year to launch a global category management network, where our objective is to share and learn best practices in category management all around the world. Last year, our focus area was the circular economy, which has spawned this particular publication. And this year, our objective within the circular economy is to bring to life the publications from our review in a series of webinars and allow people across the world a chance to, I suppose, do a deeper dive into the case studies, learn a little bit more about the people and the companies behind them, and offer the chance for communications and questions if so be it. And let's see where this brings us. I think there's room in the world for a forum where we gather those experts in circular economy or food waste or waste management on a regular basis to try and share and learn better practices in the subject. This year then, our theme is very closely linked in that it's one of sustainability. And within ECR Community, we're trying to share a lot of the great work that occurs in over 20 ECR nationals around the world. And those ECR nationals are based in Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific, but never before have I ever encountered where all of these regions are facing identical, not similar, but identical challenges. We're all facing the challenges of post-COVID and trying to define shopper behavior in the new normal, if the new normal has yet been established. I don't believe it is, but every country around the world is trying to depart lockdown and depart the post-COVID scene. Every country around the world is suffering from serious inflation and wondering when that will stop. We're all suffering from the context of the war in Ukraine and our supply chains and the lack of grains and fertilizers and the impact that has had on cost and supply chain. And we are all focused on trying to make the planet a better place and be environmentally friendly. I don't know in the history of commerce has planet Earth ever been in such a similar, identical position where shoppers are thinking identically across the world. And for me, that's quite exciting for ECR Community. We held a survey with our ECR nationals and we released the results. Shay released the results last week at our quarterly meeting in Barcelona in the 3 areas that ECR nationals would like to hear more about within the subject of sustainability. And those 3 areas were responsible sourcing, food waste management, and circular economy. Okay, so today's webinar is very appropriate to meet those needs. And as I said, we've had a number of publications recently. In 2020, we published the review on category management. And last year, we published a packaging design for recycling. And in January this year, we published a circular economy review. So all 3 have been instrumental in gathering the leading thought leaders across the world in these particular disciplines and sharing what we think is better practice and trying to move the conversation forward and trying to center ECR as a leading part of that conversation. Okay, so let's have a little bit of an in-depth look at today's agenda. I'm going to pass over to Shay shortly, and then we'll hear from Geronimo. We will hear from Angelina, and then Chris on each of their presentations. And then after that, we'll have a short panel discussion, time permitting. And please do send your questions in via the question function that you have on your control panel to do so. And I encourage you to try and do that. I mean, it's a cold enough environment trying to present on webinars, but let's try and force and create a little bit of interaction. And I know our three speakers are, really hoping that they get some questions that they can field on their topics or related topics accordingly. Now, very important for ECR community is that we've had Shay McGann, who has led the Circular Economy project from the very beginning. And Shay, great if you can give us just a little bit further insight into what we're dealing with today.
Thanks so much, Declan. So I'm just going to take you through an overview of today's case study and then just give you a bit of a reminder on the publication. So today, as Declan said, we're joined by Fernando Ventura from Geronimo Martins, and they're going to focus, and Fernando's going to step us through their project that was in the publication on the recycling of coffee pods. We're then going to go to Angelina from AB Vasilopoulos, who will look at their food waste study. Really interesting to take on a project like this where you're engaging so much with the consumers. And then finally we'll come to Chris from Food Cloud in Ireland, who are focused on working with retailers to help redistribute their surplus food. So firstly, just a bit of a background on the ECR Circular Economy focus area that's been running in ECR community now for 2 years. We started the publication, and I suppose 2021 was all about producing the report, and this year is about getting those case studies out there through webinars. And the publication, if you haven't already downloaded it, it's available from the homepage on the ECR community website. And it's I suppose 100 pages featuring 18 case studies from around the world, mainly Europe focused for this first publication. But if we are to redo this, we hope to get more in from some of our members from outside of Europe. So just the review is divided into two sections. The first is the insights section. So some articles from our ECR nationals, Austria, France and Italy, and an article from GS1 on using data to progress the circular economy. And then section 2 are the case studies, and they're all set out in the same format, so really easy to pick up and just read maybe the case studies on food waste management or packaging as they apply or as you're working on them within your own businesses. This is our steering committee that were involved in launching the publication. So our ECR nationals are along the top, and then we also engage with a number of external experts within their own areas, whether it be food waste or packaging or circular economy processes. And then this is just an overview again of the companies included in the review. So we had a really good mix of retailers, brands, and also companies that are providing circular economy solutions to both brands and retailers. And this is just a reminder then of the ECR Circular Framework that was developed to, I suppose, categorize the case studies in the review. So we have circular product design up the top, we only had one case study in this, but if we were to do this review again, we would hope that the number of case studies submitted for this category would increase. Circular packaging was probably the most popular, and a lot of companies working on this. We then had the food waste and waste management case studies that we're going to have a look at today, and finally the circular platforms category, which I suppose is the tools like digital tools and behavioral change projects that companies are working on to help the circular transition. So in terms of the webinar series for this year, just a reminder of that, we had our launch webinar at the start of February. We then had our first case study webinar in March, focusing on circular packaging and product design. we have this webinar, obviously both focused on waste, and then our circular platforms webinar will be in September. And then I just wanted to do a short recap on the webinar that we hosted in March on circular packaging and products. So we were joined by Henkel in Austria, Renew from Hungary, and Pandobac in France, and all really interesting, I suppose, perspectives. Henkel obviously providing that incumbent perspective of what they're doing, and the challenges I suppose they face. They're doing a lot of work with, like, collaborating with their waste management providers, and also trying to educate the consumer on how to correctly recycle their packaging. Renew looking at a full, I suppose, a fully circular product in terms of the contents and the packaging were less impactful to the environment. And then finally, Pandobac in France, who are providing a service to food companies in terms of reusable totes. So very different perspectives, but all really interesting, and hopefully the participants were able to take away some things that they could implement in their own businesses. So on that note, I'll hand over to Fernando, who's going to take us through the Coffee Pods case study.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Che and Declan. It's a pleasure to be here today again to share a specific case study. So just let me, I think you can now see my screen. Okay. So today I'm bringing to you, or I am sharing with you, our case study concerning recycling of coffee pods, something that we have implemented in our chain, in our supermarket chain, Pingo Doce, here in Portugal. And before I go in a more detailed way explaining how this project or initiative was born, just let me give you a small overview of this, of our chain. So Pingo Doce has 465 stores in Portugal. So it's a leading supermarket company, food retailer in Portugal. So we have stores in mainland and also in Madeira and Azores. So this supermarket chain is focused on perishables, private brand, and more recently on meal solutions. So, and focusing here in our case study. So, which was the background when we started to think on how to implement the collection of coffee pods? So, Pingo Doce launched 10 years ago, more or less, its private brand coffee pods, but also coffee machines. At that moment, just a few players had a take-back system for their own coffee pods, and those systems were exclusive to their brands. So it was they were not inclusive. It was a brand-specific system, and by then also coffee pods were not considered as packaging. So even if consumers removed the coffee grounds, these materials couldn't put in the public recycling bins, since these were not packaging materials. So we felt at that time that we had to develop a system, a solution for our customers in order to compensate the environmental impacts of these specific products. And this was an opportunity to develop and promote the circularity of a quite relevant waste stream in Portugal. And this has been increasing in a year basis. Every year, the sales of this kind of product increases in Portugal. We also had in mind that this solution should be convenient, a convenient environmental service for customers. For that, we had to establish the right partnership. And this was perhaps the most difficult step of the process, because there weren't any specific waste operators that were used to handle this kind of waste and to treat this kind of waste, and so of course recycle the different materials. So in fact, in the basis of this, in designing this initiative, there was a sense of environmental responsibility of Pingo company. So the solution, we developed this recycling bin for the coffee capsules and pods, and the solution, it's based on 4 pillars. It's relevant because even today, almost 10 years after we kick off this initiative back in 2013, it is still the biggest network to collect this kind of waste. It's also an inclusive initiative because we collect not only private brand capsules, but also all the brands, and not only the brands that we sell in our stores, but even other brands that we don't even sell them. So just for you to have a perspective on how inclusive this process is. So, and of course, circularity. All materials should be recycled and recovered. And convenient, so customers can drop off their used coffee capsules and pods in the stores where they are buying new ones. So this cannot be more convenient. We cannot develop a more convenient solution than this one. In terms of history, so we didn't start this process in 2012 and 2013. We started, in fact, in 2009 when we developed this recycling bin for used cooking oil. It was a very innovative process, especially because by that time there was no legislation in Portugal. In fact, this legislation appeared when we were rolling out the process, and then the project keep growing until 2013. So we had different waste flows, and by the end of 2013, we had already 8 different waste flows included in this process. In 2019, there was the time to redefining all these flows and also to refresh the recycling bins. And so that's why we launched the second generation of Pingo Doce's recycling bins in 2019. So with this new look and more appealing to consumers, and hopefully with impact in the amount of waste that we are collecting every year. So the results, presently we have more than 300 stores that collect this kind of waste. So 2/3 more or less of all Pingo Doce stores. We have collected in the first 9 years more than 80 million coffee pots. This represents 1.3 thousand tons of waste. And when we compare the amount collected into 2021 to the amount collected in the first complete year, so in 2014, the amount has increased by more than 10 times, which reveals the success of this initiative for Pingo Doce and for its customers and for the society as a whole, of course. We also have included a social dimension in this process. So all the revenues that we get from this initiative, namely revenues for recycling some of the flows of the pots, some of the materials that we send for recycling. So we have collected around 20,000 euros in terms of revenues, and all of this money has been given to local charities. This means also that somehow we incentivize some competition among stores, which and the stores that collect the biggest amounts of coffee pots can can choose local charities to give part of the revenue that we are receiving. So this money has been distributed for dozens of charities all over Portugal. So the main barriers have been mostly from an operation point of view. So it's related with the available store space that we have, in fact, to give to these recycling bins. The time that employees need to manage this specific waste flow. Also logistics. We have already tested several methods in terms of logistics, so store by store collection, reverse logistics, collection with other waste flows, and this has been our main headache related with this process, but we are always testing new ways to improve the efficiency of the process as a whole. And of course, the effective recycling of different materials, it's also one of our concerns, because since we are collecting all brands, this means that we are collecting, when it comes to plastics, different mixtures of plastics, which somehow and sometimes it's not easy to manage, since some of them can have materials that somehow compromise the recycling of those specific plastics. So, and just before I finish my presentation, which will be the next steps, so expanding this initiative to more stores is in fact the ambition of Pingo Doce, and for that we are developing a new recycling bin that you can see here in this slide. So it's a very slim recycling bin, since for some of the stores we have to be very careful because there isn't much space available to have this kind of equipment. So in terms of logistics, again, we are again reassessing the combining of this collection or with other waste flows and see on how we can improve the efficiency of this process as a whole. And of course, to even increase more and more the awareness of consumers for the recycling of this specific waste flow, we need to also promote more and more in-store and in the future also in packaging communication. So, and I think with this slide, I complete my presentation, just to give you an overview of the process that we faced and we are still facing. But at the end, I think we have accomplished our main target, to develop an environmentally sound solution to compensate the impacts of this specific product. So once again, thank you so much, and Shea, back to you.
Thanks so much, Fernando. That was really interesting. I think it's really, particularly the whole space element, like this is obviously for coffee pods, which are quite small, but you could do this with lots of other things. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that's addressed going forward. But maybe we'll come back to that in our discussion. Angelina, I am going to hand over to you now to hear about your food waste study.
Thank you. Great presentation, Fernando. Can you see my screen?
We can indeed, yeah.
Great. Oops, sorry. Leave? No. Okay. So my name's Angelina Sapanaki. Can you see this at the side? No. Sorry. It's not changing. Yeah. Okay, so my name's Angelina Sapanaki. I'm part of the sustainable retail team, Alpha Beta Vasilopoulos, as we say in Greece. A few words about our retail company. We are the second retailer in Greece at the moment. We have almost 600 stores. We have over 14,500 associates, and of course, we have many loyal customers. We have almost 2.2 million customers that shop our supermarket. If we go back in time, it started over 80 years ago with just one small shop in the middle of Athens, in the center of Athens. And at the moment, we've been through a lot. In '92, we became part of Deleuze Group and Ahold Deleuze in 2015. We have loyalty cards, we have franchises, Food Market and Shop and Go. We have green stores. Of course, we have Click and Shop. We have an e-shop, which because of COVID restrictions has gained many customers. And we are looking into the future. A few words about what's going on in Greece. I mean, we all know that food waste is a huge global issue for both the economy and the environment. Currently, we know that a large amount of produced food goes to waste, and that harming the environment. At the same time, there's many millions of people which are facing hunger and food insecurity. It's no different in Greece. It's almost 12% of Greeks are facing hunger and food insecurity at the moment. And it's getting worse because of the economic crisis and COVID, which has limited, of course, many jobs. There is a limited amount of studies at the moment in Greece, or up until now, focusing on where the biggest amount of food waste and food loss is made throughout the supply chain. And that is where we came to try and change what was going on. Back in 2019, Alpha Beta made quite a bold commitment, a bold statement, as we call it internally, and we wanted to reduce food waste and plastics by 50% by the year 2025. And that's quite a bold statement because that's 5 years in advance of the 2030 SDGs. Our goal is, of course, to prevent food loss and food waste. That which we cannot prevent, we would like to donate towards people feed, so to go towards food donations towards NGOs which are supporting people in need, and of course create many advocacies in order to reduce food waste by 50% by the year 2025. That led us, of course, to start a big collaboration with one of the major universities in Greece, the Charokopou University, and we started an 18-month study. Our main goal, of course, was to answer the question of what's going on in Greece. So where's the major problem at the moment in food waste? We wanted to create a baseline for us internally to start with, so that we can know where we are in order to be able to reduce food waste by 50% by 2025. And basically, we wanted to investigate an answer and a blank sheet. We wanted to answer this blank sheet of what was going on in the entire food chain. And finally, we wanted to generate educational information, which we can then use in order to change habits, attitudes, and behavior, both internally to our suppliers and, of course, our customers. Just a quick look at the methodology. There was a lot going on in the 18 months, which was a great and a very, very exciting journey, but it had its ups and downs. This is the final number of what we got from our study. So we had 772 completed household diaries. That was for our customers. They had to fill out a diary every day for 7 days, and basically they had to write what they were throwing away, the reasons they were throwing it away in order to complete it. We also got all of our suppliers involved. We had basically, we focused on fruit and veg, dairy and bakery, which is involves basically almost our entire food waste at the moment internally. And we continued with some one-to-one interviews with our suppliers. And finally, study involved the university analyzing extensively a large amount of what we have on food waste and food shrink, which is data from 2016 to 2020. Our baseline was 2019. Just a quick look at some findings. There's lots that we can talk about, and I can talk for days about this study, but if I could say a few main points, it would be for our customers. We created a baseline, and I'm going to say again that it's the biggest study at the moment and the most complete study on food waste throughout the supply chain. It is the largest regarding customers. Up until now, it was under 100 households that were complete. So we have created kind of a baseline. What we saw was that our Greek households, whether our elderly or younger generations, throw away approximately 1 million tons of food a year. That's a large amount if you think that almost half of that could safely be consumed. And if we take it down per capita, so per person, we throw away approximately 98 kilos of food from our household every year. Just a quick look at what we found from our suppliers. And I've just added our three main categories, which is the fruit and veg department, dairy, and the bakery. Our fruit and veg basically are the biggest amount of food waste is in the fruit and veg department. We have a variation of between 5 to 30% of food loss or food waste from our produce, and almost all of our suppliers said that the high standards and aesthetic was a reason, which was the rejection reason from the supplier from us. In the dairy department, it's quite a different story. The majority of the suppliers said that they had from 0 up to 1% of food waste or food loss, and that which they cannot give to us, they try to find another way of giving. So either via donations or via food markets, which we have in Greece, in the streets, in order to not get any waste. Finally, our bakery suppliers, again, very low percentage of food waste, from 0% up to 4%, which was a few cases. We had a very wide variety of products that participated from our suppliers, but we had a very insufficient representation of sliced bread. And I say that because sliced bread internally was the second biggest food waste product from the bakery department. And again, the bakery sector didn't write down much concerning large quantities of food waste, and that which cannot be given to Alpha Beta, again, found another way of going towards food donations or food markets. Finally, internally, so our AB operations, which are our stores and our warehouses, I've added a few pies. So the first pie I wanted to share with you is, of course, the food waste and food donations according to weight. So if you take a look at the pie, you'll see that the fruit and veg department, our dairy and deli and bakery department almost sum up to 80% of our total food waste. So that was, of course, and that will be our main area of focus. However, fresh meat and fresh fish, as well as processed meat and fish, is something that we wanted to look into, and that is because if we go to our second slide and we look at the difference in values, it's quite different, because now the fresh meat and the processed meat and fish are in first place, and that is because they're more expensive. So we didn't want to leave them out, because a large amount of emissions and harmful environmental gases are because of the meat and fish. So we are trying to find ways of changing that as well. Again, fruit and veg, dairy and bakery account for 61% of the total food waste, even in values. Finally, for our internal operations, I wanted to add the reason, basically, for the reason for getting thrown away. So we have the most amount is from our stores. It stems from our AB stores. Then we have also our warehouses, returns to suppliers. And of course, we have a very large program, which I'm going to show you just a quick slide about, which is donating towards NGOs. In 2019, all these numbers are from 2019, which is our baseline. We had over 9% of total food waste going to food donations. So basically, when we finished and completed the study in September 2021, we needed to see what we can do next. So we started collaborations in order to change what we were doing at the time in order to be able to reduce food waste by 2025. One of the initiatives which we started was a very big collaboration with WWF in Greece. and that is a collaboration regarding all of our key stakeholders in the supply chain, which means our AB associates, stores, warehouses, our headquarters, as well as our suppliers and our customers. And what we want to do, and what we've already started doing, is create awareness campaigns, webinars, booklets, workshops, everything that we can in order to educate all of these stakeholders with the ultimate goal of reducing food waste. A very large part of what we try to do is what we cannot sell and what is considered food waste, we would like and we would love for it to go towards food donations. So we have a very large program which is called the Love Food Program, which started back in 2013, so almost 10 years. And this program has made us the first company in Greece basically to implement an organized program in donating, and we donate fresh and non-fresh products from both our stores and our warehouses. And at the moment, all of our stores throughout Greece, which I showed you before, are connected to an NGO. And what we do is we donate close to expiration goods or slightly damaged goods, which are perfectly and safe to feed people in need. And through that, we have managed to both support over 240 local organizations last year, which basically feed over 120,000 people throughout Greece. And if I can say that in numbers as well, we have offered over 8 million meals through the Love Food Program. And this is all food that would have gone in the rubbish bin if we hadn't got the program. If I can do a quick sum and recap of everything for our study. Yes, our study is in line with previous bibliography. However, in Greece, it is the biggest and the most complete study at the moment on food waste throughout the supply chain. Our customers is the biggest part of food waste in Greece, and it's also the biggest challenge, and that's because Greeks, there's a big inertia, and we are considered quite big food wasters at the moment. So there's a lot that we need to do in regards to customers. Our suppliers, there is lots of room for in-depth collaboration, and that is why together with WWF we are starting workshops, webinars in order to try and help and be with our suppliers in this journey to reduce food waste and overall prevent potential food waste which is generated. Finally, internally, well, we are handling very well food waste. However, we are at the moment creating a very big operational changes in order to reduce even further our food waste and also at the same time increase our food donations through the Love Food Program. Finally, fruit and veg, dairy and bakery are the largest percentage of food waste in Greece. Either we see it with customers, either we see it with operations. And quick next steps for us, we have many campaigns, so customer campaigns, suppliers, we're going to have them with us in this journey. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And at the same time, we do thrive to set KPIs. So we have some KPIs for all our stakeholders and plan on developing annual reports in order to inform all of our stakeholders on the progress of this journey. That's all I have for now. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Angelina. Really interesting, and I commend you on your attempt to engage with the end users and consumers. It's time consuming and a huge project, and great to see that you're continuing it with the WWF. I'm going to come to Chris now for your presentation on food waste.
Cool. Hi guys, really cool to be on and great to hear from both Fernando and Angelina there. I'm going to try to take us through a bit of kind of 10-minute overview of the Food Cloud case study that's there. And in doing so, I'm going to actually talk a bit about what Food Cloud does, who we are, and that'll really highlight what we talked about in the case study, how collaboration can be key to both identifying and preventing food waste. I promise I'll do that in less than 10 minutes to try to leave us some time for questions at the end as well. So just as a bit of background, Food Cloud is a non-profit social enterprise. But what does that actually mean? What that means is we are a registered charity. We are a food bank and a national food bank, a national redistribution partner here in Ireland. But that non-profit piece and that social enterprise piece is really, really important. Is we are driven by our values, we are driven by the impact that we want to have for the charities that we support and the food industry partners that we support. But we want to do that in a way that we work as a business. We would love to make as much profit as possible, but that profit would be reinvested into the impact that we can have. We want to have a greater impact for all of the partners that we support here in Ireland, but also the work that we do internationally. And importantly, that impact is having a real difference on the planet. So by reinvesting any income we do make, really just speeds up the impact that we can have. And that's where at FoodCloud, if my slides decide to change, we have a vision for a world where no good food goes to waste. We really are focused on tackling this kind of global challenge of food waste for many of the reasons, some of which Angelina's already highlighted. So globally now, the UN had previously highlighted around about 30 to 33% of food waste is wasted. That number is actually now closer to 40%, as highlighted by recent studies by the WWF. The figure in agriculture much higher than we originally thought. And that is sitting directly opposite the food insecurity challenges that we've got globally. Globally, almost 1 billion people simply don't have enough food to eat and don't have the right variety of food to eat. So where over 40% of food isn't being consumed and so many people are in need for food, there's twin challenges staring each other in the face. And the big elephant in the room here is the climate impact that all of that has. So the climate impact associated with food waste, 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gases are associated just with the wastage of food. To put that in context, air travel that is often associated with climate change is closer to around 4% of global greenhouse gases. So that huge amount of food that is wasted each year is having a direct impact on the planet. And at FoodCloud, what we're doing to kind of address that challenge is we have two solutions. The important bit here is we would like to bring technology to everything that we're doing. We recognize that we have developed food systems for years where we are very good at getting that final product to the shelf edge for the right price and the right time. But actually, that's a very linear system. We want to bring technology and, importantly, collaboration that is driven by technology to bring greater circularity to the food system. And we do that in two areas. On the retail side of things, we support retailers and other food businesses such as restaurants and cafes of all sizes to identify and redistribute surplus food to charities and the community directly on their doorstep. So a FoodCloud hand isn't involved there. It's simply using our technology to scan that food, identify that food, offer that out to a local group, and then get that out to that charity or that community group that evening or that day. Importantly, that gives us the full traceability and allows us to really create kind of world-leading reporting around the impact that each user is having, and the impact then that each charity is receiving in terms of that great food that they are able to collect. We also run a slightly more traditional model. The idea of kind of large-scale redistribution from the supply chain has been around really since the 70s, since kind of food banking first kicked in North America. But really what we kind of do is sit slightly further up the chain, where we run a large-scale warehouse solution that then redistributes to food banks and charities to use that food. And importantly there, we're trying to bring more technology to that all the time. So our warehouses, like I'm sat in Dublin here in Ireland at the moment, run like any other food business, where our colleagues are scanning items. We're using a real database with all that information on there to automatically highlight where that product has come from. And importantly, a lot of the nutritional information and category information is captured straight away. That means we can really then be proactive in how we best support charities, but also then how we best support our food industry partners in giving them the reporting and real climate impact that they are having in terms of redistributing that food. And at the moment, we have these two solutions. The retail one firstly started in 2013, and the supply chain we brought on in 2016. We now have 3 hubs across the island of Ireland. And to date, really since kind of 2014, when we really kind of got into our stride, we've redistributed now over 65,000 tonnes of surplus food. And every week we support over 12,000 community groups across the 4 markets we currently work in Europe. So that's here in Ireland, across the UK, and then across a couple of markets in Central Europe as well. But we're expanding all the time, and we support national food banks such as FareShare, the network through FEBA, the European Network of Food Banks, and a number of food industry partners, from your biggest suppliers and biggest retailers through to local farmers and local suppliers as well. And what that means in kind of real terms is that's over 150 million meals redistributed so far. That's more than any other either B2C food waste app or any other redistribution technology. It's a huge, huge scale, and that has a direct impact for the planet, with over 200,000 tons of CO2 equivalent saved. And just a total of 50% of that impact has been achieved in the last 2 years alone. So really what technology enables is technology enables quick growth. And you could see there over the first couple of years, 2016, 17, 18, we rolled out in Ireland, we rolled out in the UK, working with Tesco, working with Aldi, working with Lidl, working with Waitrose, we could quickly scale up. But in the last 2 years, we've not had massive rollouts. Yes, we're in some new markets in Europe, but we've really been able to innovate and grow in our existing markets. So if you take the retail solution still in the UK, we've easily grown that by over 30% each year over the last 2 years by innovating with our partners. That's the food industry partners, making it easy for them to redistribute food every single day, but also then the charity and community group partners, so that they have easy access to the food every single day. And then importantly, that food is appropriate for their services. Now, very, very quickly, I promise I'm only going to just highlight one of these rather than the 3 that was included in the case study. We take the idea of collaboration into the supply chain as well. And what we did through basically, I think 2019, and it's carried on into 2020 and 2021, supported by the department, the EPA and Department of Agriculture here in Ireland. And we worked with our retail partners and supply chain partners to walk supply chains together. So that was having the retailer, the supplier, and FoodCloud in the same facility to both identify where waste was happening, why it was occurring, and importantly then identifying what was safe to redistribute. So if you take this example with Tesco and the Hilton Group are a protein supplier across Europe. It's a very, very efficient supply chain. That product is very high value, and all of the energy, the time, the water, the feed that has gone into producing it, it's really important that we maximize that food. So the amount of surplus that was occurring was actually relatively small in terms of percentage, but it's still high value to the food industry players itself, and really then high value to the charities and community groups that are out there. So what we were able to do is, in collaboration, highlight where that food waste was occurring, why it was occurring, and that meant that some changes could happen between Tesco and Hilton, how they would collaborate around their forecasting and promotional planning. But importantly, anything that was left, we now redistribute that food. Rather than a truck driving from Hilton, the truck is already driving from Hilton to Tesco. So that surplus is included in that order, that is then driven from the Tesco site along with other surplus directly to our warehouse. So it means that we are cutting out the journeys and we're making it easier for that food to be redistributed. And I'll close just with a couple of kind of key points. The other case studies, the other examples are included in the case studies in the pack that she highlighted earlier. Again, the same idea is there, is by walking the supply chain together, we can highlight opportunities more easily. But really where we want to go next with these ideas is by using technology, by making it easy for either a food industry partner or a retailer to integrate redistribution processes into their day-to-day actions. It's more easy for them to make a difference. Our goal is that we want to create a more equitable, inclusive, and circular food system. And what that means is that by identifying food waste, why it occurs, ideally preventing it, and if we can't prevent it, getting it as high up the food waste hierarchy as possible, we introduce circularity at every stage, from the farm all the way to the retailer, to make sure that we have a safety net for that food surplus. I'll close off there. Thank you very much for the time this afternoon. Apologies, I kept that quite tight, but I think it's quite good for us to have a quick discussion at the end.
Thanks a million, Chris. Really interesting. And yeah, our next webinar is on platforms and the tools you can use to prevent food waste and general waste. So I think that space is really interesting in terms of creating impact. We don't have a huge amount of time left, so I think I'll have a question maybe for each of you, and maybe going back to Fernando. I suppose in the whole realm of sustainability, it's no longer good enough to just be doing things within your own four walls. You have to look outside, whether that's working with your suppliers or educating the end consumer or your customers. I was just wondering if you can give our audience a bit of a perspective in terms of what you're seeing and what are some good examples of collaboration in this space.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Well, I can give you some ideas related with this project of the coffee capsules and pods. This was only possible because we collaborated with different stakeholders, and even after we set this process in our stores, many initiatives were initiated afterwards. So for us to start, there was a need to identify the correct partner to collect and receive the waste. So with capacity to separate all the materials, all the coffee grounds as a first stage, but then aluminium pots from plastic capsules and so on. So, and to have the right flows, so those wastes could be recovered and recycled. But many other initiatives have then been set up. Namely, we are working with the supply chain, the recyclability of the plastic capsules, for instance, because different materials are being used depending on the brand, different combinations, and this is a problem for the end of the life of the capsules. So we can increase their circularity if somehow the industry as a whole improves in the same direction. Other initiatives like cooperating with a specific coffee brand that is not owned by us, so an industry brand. So somehow we are cooperating. They somehow aware their own consumers that at Pingo stores they can find recycling bins, so they can leave the coffee pots in our own stores. So and this is the way that brands and the different stakeholders can cooperate. As just to give you a few examples, because I could be here again taking more than 10 minutes, but just to give you a sense of how the cooperation is important in terms of circularity. Otherwise, we can improve a little bit the circularity of our processes and materials, but a big impact, to have a big impact, there is a need for cooperation among all stakeholders.
And within your business, is it like the time required to do all of this collaboration? Do you have someone responsible for it, or is it really just been embedded in all the existing roles?
Well, in fact, for some of the activities, I lead that team. So my team is responsible to increase the efficiency and innovation of environmental projects. But in fact, this is a concern of many departments, of many internal stakeholders. And even if they have different needs and different views on how this process can be improved, we have been able to combine all different point of views and somehow to involve external stakeholders in this process. So I wouldn't say that at this moment, perhaps at the beginning, but at this moment, this is not a need or a responsibility for a specific department or area.
Okay. Thank you. Angelina, for you, I'm fascinated by your case study and in terms of your engagement with the consumer. Did you when you say food diaries, were they online, like apps that people had on their phone, or and what was the feedback like?
Oh. Oh, it was a fantastic journey. The most difficult part was the customers. So it was difficult to get customers engaged, especially when they had to fill out a diary, a food waste diary, as we called it, every day. So every day they had to go online and fill it out in order for it to be complete. We tried many methods with the university. So we even tried it via our loyalty card. We tried it. In the end, what we saw was with a company that helped us basically filter, so companies that help us with focus groups as well, find the households that can answer the questionnaires and the diaries, and basically send out a link which every day they had to go online and fill out. And I mean, many more filled out the questionnaire, but they had to have over 5 days, so 6 or 7 days complete diaries in order to be valid. And again, yes, but I think the most difficult part was the customer part of the study.
Yeah,
also,
well, I think it was bold to even go there. But yeah.
Bold. But at the same time, it was it's the most important, because I mean, if you have the three, so if you say customers, suppliers, operations, they are accountable for the 50% of overall. So from our study, at least for us in Greece, 50% of food waste comes from our customers. Then it's the suppliers, then it's the retailers at the moment, because there's a good handling on food waste. So we couldn't leave them out. I mean, they're an important part, and understanding their behaviour and changing their behaviour and their activities and how they regard food waste.
I'm sure within that week they were all really good, because if you're being tracked, you're much better. But,
well, 1 million times, not sure if they're good. Not sure if they were good, but I mean, it's important to know what they're thinking. It's important to know what triggers them. I mean, it's important to know the reason and the perceptual definition of food waste. So in Greece, there is a big inertia on like date labeling, and it was important to know what they're thinking and what triggers them to basically, what compels them to throw away in the first place, in order to be able to understand the reason why, in order to be able to go and create customer campaigns, which is what we started in October last year. So we started sort of educating them and then saying like, okay, we're here with you, and food waste, this is the problem, this is the solution.
I'm conscious we're pretty much at time. I did really want to come to you, Chris, and just ask you about the regulation. You're obviously a food waste solution provider for retailers and brands, but like what regulation in particular you see that's driving retailers and brands to do this, or is it really just their want to decrease food waste?
Yeah, kind of says there's lots of food industry players out there that are well intentioned and really are making these decisions for the right reasons, but let's be honest, with 8 short years to achieve UN SDG goals, 2030 really isn't that far away, and legislations and targets at both a national and an international level are going to be facing us all in terms of the businesses that we work in here and now, across the supply chain, and even how we consume food ourselves and how we purchase food. Really what we are looking at the most, and what's coming down the line here in Ireland and with lots of partners across Europe, is that measuring activity, is making sure that reporting is in place. Partly because if you can't measure something, you can't actually target it and make a difference. But importantly, to show that we are then progressing towards those UN SDG goals. So by the end of 2023 across Europe, the aim for the EU Commission is that there will be legally binding targets in place across all EU member states, but also legally binding reporting requirements. So that includes how all of our businesses then will measure and report on waste, and importantly, the baselines that we will use to then track our progress over the coming years. And that's really both a challenge and an opportunity, because it doesn't mean that each country needs to come up with a standard of how to report and measure food waste. Really, by using then standards not only across the EU but globally, that have already been developed will make it far, far easier for us to focus on tackling the issue rather than trying to figure out how we're going to measure it. So although that pressure is on for us to all put in reporting systems, the solutions are there, and provided that we can then look to use the right technology, in theory, whether I be a small agricultural player or a multinational supplier or retailer, the mechanisms are there to put that reporting in place. It is though going to be a busy 18 months.
Brilliant. Thanks a million. Thank you to all three of you for joining us today. I know it's been a little bit rushed and perhaps we tried to squeeze too much in, but I'm sure these conversations will continue. Thanks to everyone online who joined us for this session. We'll have the recording up on our website if anyone registered did miss it. So thank you all. And yeah, we look forward to doing our third one in September.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.